him for sex crime, as if she could see whatever filthiness he had cooking in his head. Well, there wasn't much point after that. They had finished their meal in silence. The day it changed was the morning O'Brien was in fiction, a low April morning of evil winds, when all London rattled and moaned and seemed about to blow down around its own ankles. With O'Brien in, fiction was a madhouse, everyone showing off how hard they could work. But Julia's side dried up. She spent the whole morning up on the walkway, watching in vain for the yellow flags that meant someone needed a repair. Normally they sprouted like weeds, and Julia was dashing about all day to a refrain of, "Comrade, it's making a rattle. Oh, it's not doing it now. Could you just check?" Most service requests were just an excuse to sneak out for a chat and a gin, and Julia always played her part, shutting down the machine and pretending to hunt for the source of the phantom problem. Today, not a rattle in the house. Everyone was too afraid of being taken for a saboteur by O'Brien. Julia spent the morning pacing the walkway, gasping for a fag but knowing all it wanted was a cigarette for her to look criminally idle. Fiction was a vast and windowless factory floor that took up the first 2 basement stories of the Ministry of Truth. The space was dominated by the plot machinery, 8 mammoth machines that looked like simple boxes of shining metal. When you opened them up, their guts were a bewildering array of sensors and gears. Only Julia and her colleague Essie knew how to crawl around inside without doing damage. The central mechanism was the kaleidoscope. It had 16 sets of claws that selected and transported plot elements, hundreds of metal sorts that were grabbed and discarded until a group was found that fit together. This successful pattern was assembled, again by machinery, on a magnetised plate. The plate was dipped into a tray of ink, then swivelled out and was stamped onto a roll of paper. The printed length of paper was cut away. A production manager lifted it free. The result was a gridded print, jocularly called a bingo card, that coded the elements of a story: genre, main characters, major scenes. A rewrite man had once attempted to explain to Julia how these were interpreted, but to no avail. Even after 5 years on the floor, to her they might as well have been East Asian picture writing. Now she watched as a production manager snatched a new print off the roll and waved it about to dry the ink. When he was satisfied, he rolled it, inserted it in a green cylinder, and shoved the cylinder into a pneumatic tube. From her vantage point, Julia could watch the cylinder's flight through a tangle of translucent plastic hoses on the ceiling to plop into a bin at the southern end of the room. That was rewrite, where men and women sat in long rows, muttering into speak-rights, turning bingo cards into novels and stories. But by that stage, no machines were involved, and Julia's interest was at an end. She was perpetually fascinated by the plot machinery, how it worked, and the ways it could go wrong. She knew how the inks were formulated, and loved to explain why the blue gave trouble. She knew how the paper was held steady, and what could make it bunch up or crease. She was excruciatingly aware of when a part would soon need replacing, and knew how to submit the order so it wouldn't get knocked back by the Capital Goods Committee. But about the books that were the end result, she knew little and cared less. Once a rewrite chap told her he was the same, having formerly been a voracious reader. "People say if you love sausage, you should never see it being made. It disgusts you after that. That's me in books." For Julia, this dictum wasn't true of sausage. She'd made and eaten sausage without a second thought. She'd even eaten sausage raw.